The Evil of the Daleks, the ninth and final serial of Doctor Who's fourth season, first broadcast in 7 parts from the 20th of May to the 1st of July 1967. Most of this particular story has been lost, with only episode 2 remaining in its original format. However, in 2021, it was announced that it would be the latest story to receive an animated recreation. That, of course, being this. Now, this is one story that I was very sad was missing. So when it was announced it was getting an animated recreation, I knew I had to see this. And it honestly surprised me, because you look at shots in the original story, and you think, okay, this is like the future or another planet, and then a huge Emperor Dalek like that, you've got to think this is going to be pretty futuristic or pretty set in the future. But actually very little of that is involved. I mean, the Emperor Dalek doesn't even show up until part 6. And a lot of it's not quite what I thought it was, but it's still a good story. So, anyway. The second Doctor, played once again by Patrick Troughton, and his companion, Jamie McCrimmon, played by Fraser Hines, following on from the end of the Faceless Ones, they're looking for the TARDIS, and they found it being driven away on a truck away from Gatwick Airport. They eventually managed to track it down to an antique shop. Now, it's important to note that this takes place in 1966. Anyway, they managed to follow it down to an antique shop where eventually they're knocked out and brought through another time machine to a Victorian country mansion in 1866. The man who brought them there, Edward Waterfield, originally played by actor John Bailey. He's kind of a scientist working at the country mansion alongside a fellow scientist, Theodore Maxtable, played previously by Marius Goring. And the two of them had been working on their own time machine using mirrors when suddenly had come through it the Daleks. The Daleks have an insidious plot, and they want the Doctor's help with it. After several times of trying to conquer and invade the Earth, the Daleks want to isolate the human factor, the thing that means humans are always able to survive and always able to defeat the Daleks. They want to isolate that human factor so they can implant it into 3 Daleks. They're able to get Maxtable on side by promising to give him the secret of alchemy, that's turning metal into gold, which quickly manages to get him on board. Waterfield, however, although he might seem evil in like the first 2 episodes or so, he is eventually revealed to be more doing this under duress. I mean, I personally thought, okay, when I saw this first few parts of this, I thought, okay, Edward Waterfield is going to be something of a minor villain for the Daleks, someone who's actually working with them. But no, he's actually more just, as I said, working under duress, mainly because they have taken his daughter. Of course, this is the introduction of second Doctor companion Victoria Waterfield, played by Deborah Watling. And I have to admit, I was a little surprised to find out about these two, because I remember watching The Tomb of the Cybermen, the next story in the playlist, which will be round about there or so. I remember watching that story and hearing that he was a scientist, so I thought, well, I naturally assumed with my mind, okay, present day or 1960s scientist and choose from the present day as well. But no, both of them are Victorian, and yeah. They haven't necessarily taken her anywhere that far away, but they've isolated her in another part of the house. And so the Doctor has to work with the Daleks in order to get Victoria back. And has to find a way to isolate the human factor, which he does by essentially setting up cameras all around the house and then setting Jamie through a task of trying to rescue Victoria, and in doing so, they can isolate the human factor. Of course, there are many different characters like this, including the 3 that I feel are most relevant to this story are Edward Waterfield, played originally by John Bailey, Theodore Maxtable, Marius Goring, and Kemmel, played originally by Sonny Caldernes, who is supposed to be, I think, like a guard. He's advertised like a Turkish bodyguard, a Turkish wrestler. And he doesn't actually have any lines in the story. I mean, he never actually says anything. I don't know if that was part of the original story, but I mean, with the animation on this, while I can't speak for the original story, with the animation they do manage to get across him as a really good character. I mean, he clearly cares about Victoria Waterfield. I don't know if there was something like romantic interest there. That would have been cool. And he ultimately tries to protect her and he tries to prove himself as strong, but yeah, I mean, I feel they managed to do a really good job animating this character with all of the kind of eccentricities that you'd see from a character that never says anything. I believe the only actual noise I heard come out of him was that right at the end when he gets pushed by a Dalek into. Well, no, not a Dalek. He gets pushed by Maxtable, who's been controlled by the Daleks, into a pit on Skaro, and yeah, he dies, screams in agony. I mean, other characters do pop up, such as Maxtable's wife, I think it is, played by Bridget Forsyth, and a rather caring maid, named Molly Dawson, played by Jo Rosebottom. And before I go on here, I will mention that the 3D work that they did for this recreation, once again, it's very impressive. I mean, while the characters still occasionally look a little 2D, a little flat, they do manage to do some great work with the Daleks and even a few sweeping shots of the landscape. I mean, I remember, I think it's part 2 or part 3, they do a kind of 3D look at the house, kind of from the outside of it, and I was really impressed. Now, one of the things that did actually make me want to view this story is because that everyone views it so highly, and I remembered in the Doctor Who Extra, which was kind of the Peter Capaldi era Doctor Who Confidential, that for the 2014 Christmas special last Christmas, Michael Troughton said that he remembered Michael Troughton, who was the son of Patrick Troughton. He said that when his dad was in Doctor Who, he remembered two specific visits to the set. One being the Evil of the Daleks, with the giant Emperor Dalek, and the other being the Web of Fear, which, that sounds like a cool story. But the thing that I think everybody remembers about this story is the Emperor Dalek. And this thing, even in I can't speak for the original episode because, of course, it's missing. But I saw pictures of the Emperor Dalek, and that's pretty much what made me want to view the story. And while he doesn't show up until around about part 6, he doesn't show up until fairly late in the story. Kind of like the invasion, the Cybermen don't actually show up till part 4. But when the Emperor Dalek does appear in part 6, it's the highlight of the story. I mean, this thing is huge, and even in animation you can tell that this thing is threatening. But it ultimately reveals that they weren't actually looking for the human factor. I mean, while the Doctor does manage to implant the human factor into 3 Daleks, they reveal that with this research they can also isolate the Dalek factor, and thus they want the Doctor to spread the Dalek factor across every single human on Earth across time. And then it suddenly becomes a whole lot more dangerous. And as I said, the Emperor Dalek is the highlight, but the Victorian era stuff I feel also did really well. Skaro is shown pretty good. The house, I admit, is very impressive. The Daleks, they're once again a joy. I mean, even just to have 3 Daleks implanted with a human factor and kind of acting silly, acting juvenile, like Daisy, Daisy, Daisy Daleks. That just cracked me up. I just thought I should be horrified about this, but it's also pretty funny. So yeah, The Evil of the Daleks. I will admit it is a great story, and I advise you, if you can get the animated recreation, check it out. It's brilliant. Will be my next class Doctor Who story? Well, once again, I'm at a point when I don't really know. I mean, should I attempt to find the last 2 remaining stories that actually exist of Series 4? Should I try and get more of the first Doctor? Should I finish the 7th Doctor season? They only have 1 story left to do. At this point, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, but that's my quick little review of The Evil of the Daleks, and I advise you, if you can, definitely check it out. So, there you go, my quick review of Evil of the Daleks. And until next time, see ya.